The former Intercontinental Champion of the world, Macho Man Randy
Nothing
said,
means nothing.
Nothing
means nothing.
Nothing means nothing. What do you mean by that?
So imagine that we have some wild strawberries growing in an ancient city, say in Rome or something, and me and James, being ancient Romans, are walking around in our togas, and we find the ancient strawberries, and we pick the strawberries, and there's some that are bigger than the others, and there are some that are smaller than the others, but they're all ripe, and some of them are a little more juicy, but me and James are eating the strawberries. Those strawberries are real. Me and James just look at the strawberries, we just see the strawberries, we have knowledge of the strawberries from walking around, then we're eating strawberries. We're going to fast forward now to about 1960. And now we have Strawberry Factory, which just grows strawberries all the time. And it selectively breeds the strawberries so that we only get the biggest, juiciest, reddest, loveliest strawberries. And then we pick them. And then only the biggest, reddest, juiciest strawberries imaginable get sent out. So the average person sitting in their home only knows the flavor and the taste of the biggest, reddest, juiciest strawberries. So we have what you might call a productive copy of the strawberries, right? We're making the strawberries, but they're still, in a sense, they're real strawberries. It's just strawberries on evolutionary steroids. But then, James and me, having our knowledge from ancient Rome, because we're still alive, say, hey, we can make strawberry candies. So what do is we distill out of the strawberries the flavor of the strawberries, and we double the strength of it, so it's way stronger than any strawberry that you could ever have wanted. It's way stronger than that. It's like twice as strong or 10 times as strong. And we're going to add sugar to it. And we're going to create a strawberry candy. Well, fast forward to the 1990s, and the Jolly Rancher company says, hey, look, what we're going to do is we're going to do that same thing. But you know what? The strawberries are really expensive. So we're going to design a thing that tastes like the strawberries, and we're going to replace that wonderful natural cane sugar that you guys use. We're going to replace that with high fructose corn syrup. And then we're going to make the Jolly Rancher. So now the Jolly Rancher is the strawberry Jolly Rancher that tastes like the strawberry candy, that tastes like the wonderful 1960s selectively grown strawberries, which taste like the original strawberries. But whoa, wait. Someone's going to come along and they're going to make a soda. Jolly Rancher soda. Jolly Rancher strawberry soda, which tastes like the Jolly Rancher, which tastes like the candy, which tastes like the strawberry, which tastes like the original wild strawberries. But hold on a second. We're going to make 7-Eleven comes along and says, hey, you know what would be really good? If we made a Slurpee of the Jolly Rancher strawberry soda. So eventually the Slurpee of the Jolly Rancher strawberry soda takes off, man, and everyone just loves it. And everyone's drinking it. Eventually, you know what? I have a son. My son loves the Jolly Rancher strawberry Slurpee from 7-Eleven. And my son is out walking, drinking his strawberry syrup, and that's all he's ever had. I don't buy strawberries for my kid because there's COVID. So all he ever has is the strawberry Jolly Rancher soda Slurpee from 7-Eleven. And now as he's walking around one day, he looks over and he sees this odd bush of these like green and red things that are kind of growing, and they're kind of funny and they're kind of misshapen. And he goes, oh, those look like, that looks like the kind of like logo here of a strawberry. And he goes and he picks it and he goes, well, it kind of tastes like my Slurpee, but the Slurpee's way better. The Slurpee is cold and refreshing, and oh, it's so sweet, and the flavor is so powerful. That's what a real strawberry tastes like. So now we've gotten to the point where we started with wild strawberries, and we ended up with a ice cold sugary fructose corn syrupy thing, which tastes like a cold soda carbonated water fructosey syrupy thing, which tastes like a candy fructosey syrupy thing, which tastes like a strawberry sugary candy thing, which tastes like a selectively grown strawberry, which tastes like a wild. And we are completely divorced from the original strawberry. And now the flavor of strawberry is associated with the Slurpee, right? That's the thing. And the picture
and
of the strawberry,
people prefer the Slurpee to the real.
That's right. The Slurpee is the thing that we care about. It's more real than real. It is a hyper-real thing.
And then when we go further into the future to 20XD6, we get betrayed by Cypher, who's like, no, plug me back in. I just want to eat strawberries again.
Because the movie The Matrix is exactly about this.
Yeah.
The Matrix is the signs and the symbols and the manufactured fake reality, the copies of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of the things that we prefer to the real thing, which is why we prefer women on Instagram who have Snapchat filters to make them look more female than female, and we love the bodybuilders that have so much muscle that they're more manly than manly, and the strawberries that are more strawberry than strawberry, and the President Trump, which is more American than American. He's almost a caricature of America because he hugs the American flag and serves McDonald's at the White House, which is more America than America. It's America on steroids.
Yeah.
Baudrillard's going to say, we live in a world where nothing is real. It doesn't exist. Nothing exists. And he pushes this and pushes this and pushes this and pushes this and says everything is not real. It's hyper real. It's not that it's fake. It's that it's what's real on the other side of reality. The real thing is the strawberry. The hyper real thing is the Slurpee, is the strawberry Slurpee, which you'd much rather have than the original strawberry. It's way better. Which is why he keeps going and he pushes this. And eventually he says things like, the Iraq War did not take place. The Iraq War didn't happen. Now, something happened, but Baudrillard's going to say, look, what happened in Iraq was a purely symbolic thing. It had nothing to do with the facts on the ground. It was Saddam Hussein is a symbol of evil, and the United States is a symbol of good. And being that the United States is a symbol of good, what do symbols of good do? Well, they have to have a simulation of being good. They have to simulate it in some way. And what we're going to do is fight the bad guy, which is Saddam Hussein. But of course, we're not going to have a real war. We're going to have a fake war. We're going to have a false war. It's going to be a simulation of a war, and we're going to film it. And you can watch it on TV every night. So George H.W. Bush is going to get up lights, camera, action, I declare war, and all the media companies are going to film it, and we're going to watch stuff get shot. And the end is never in doubt. There's no struggle, really. It's just the powerful boot of the United States just crushing Saddam's army. And we all sit around and we all talk about how wonderful and good we are because we've defeated it. We've defeated the enemy that we set up for ourselves, that we created for ourselves so that we could act out the image of being good, so that we could be the simulation of a hero. So what he says is the Iraq War, as you think about it, as a real war, of a real struggle where there's a real end in doubt, and that's a blood and gut struggle, he says that's been completely replaced by the symbolic nature of it. And so he says when you go and you watch the war on TV and then you ask a soldier who was actually there what it's like, the actual soldier says, I didn't see any of that. I was locked away in a bunker dropping bombs that looked like a video game. I was piloting my F-15 fighter and it looks exactly like, Top Gun for the 8-bit Nintendo. I had no idea. I didn't see actually any people there when I was locked away in my bunker targeting Patriot missiles. I didn't see anybody or anything. Now, Baudrillard says there's not real stuff. There's not that there's not real stuff going on the ground. There is. It's just we don't know anything about that. The war for us is the simulation.
Which is
the
on
simulacra
CNN.
CNN. Yeah. Yeah, so the Iraq War didn't happen. In the very same way that we could keep going with this, we could talk about how the Trump presidency didn't happen either. The Trump presidency was a simulation of a president. We have a guy who's a reality TV show who's getting up, going back and forth and going to various different things, talking about the various different things he's going to do. All the work's actually being done by Mitch McConnell. Trump's just signing things. So the Trump presidency, in a sense, didn't happen. It was a spectacle of a thing that happened. What happened was Trump going on CNN and CNN pretending to fact-check Trump. So Trump would go on CNN and pretend that he was fooling them. And then CNN was pretending to catch him. And we were all pretending to watch, pretending to care, pretending that things were really going on. Meanwhile, back in Washington, what's actually going on is what? Mitch McConnell's just passing bills, and the typical same old Republican stuff that's always been going on is continuing to go on.
The key word here is kayfabe, right?
I'm gunning for the trad
like
wise,
pro
but what's a kayfabe?
Pro wrestling. Kayfabe is the style of pro wrestling. This is why, Trump was, he's in the WWF Hall of Fame, or maybe it's WWE now. I don't know if they changed the name of the Hall of Fame, but it's a performance in which the performers know it's fake. most of the audience knows it's fake, but some of the audience doesn't know it's fake. But everybody just goes along with it and pretends that it's real for the sake of the theatrics. And kind of a key with kayfabe is that you kind of give winks and nods, I mean, to the fact that it's fake. It's kind of like when Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, and then he breaks a fourth wall, breaking a fourth wall, which is like a 16-dimensional wall or something. Like, that's kind of a kayfabe flavored thing. And kayfabe actually psychologically eases the dissonance of living in a hyper reality and in reality at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Because somebody's now kind of winking through the camera and saying, it's okay. It's not real. We're all playing along. You play too, and now we're going to have some fun with it. You go back and watch some of the old WWF. I think about this particular scene, which I've watched on YouTube a bunch of times in the past year, with the Randy Macho Man Savage. Huge dude, a bit strange, big beard, the glasses over the top. He's wearing purple. He's got this little tiny thing. He's doing like a magic trick, and he's all quirky and weird and twitchy. And then he's doing like this little magic trick, and he's like, and he pulls out this teeny tiny little half and half thing.
Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in, but the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
And he's like acting like he's just shaking, like coked out, right? And he's doing this, and he knows the audience is playing along, and we're all just having fun. And in some weird way, it relieves the stress of living in this world where we also know we're being fed these ridiculous narratives that are as you know, that are hyper real, that are more real than real, and yet somehow profoundly unsatisfying. So what happens with Trump is he came in, and in a sense he understood, whether probably just intuitively, that we do live in postmodernity now for whatever set of reasons, and that if he breaks the fourth wall in the right way, if he goes on CNN and doesn't just go on CNN and play the game, but says fake news every single time, fake news CNN, no, I won't talk to you. He's breaking the fourth wall while also engaging in a particular kind of performance. The thing is looking back at Trump, I don't think a lot of it was a particular kind of performance. I think he was actually calling them out. And so then nobody's quite sure what of it is real and what of it is not real. And this actually led people to break a lot of that cognitive dissonance that, you know, the whole Eric Weinstein calls it the gated institutional narrative or whatever. Like, you know, Curtis Yarvin, Mencius Moberg, we're not supposed to call him by his real name, calls it the cathedral. I don't know if he holds this idea, so I don't want to ascribe it to him, but people in his orbit hold the idea that freedom and liberty are social constructs, and that ultimately all there is power. So you have this very kind of overtly postmodern idea. So they call this a dark enlightenment, but I think it's a dark awakening, or a dark awakening, because it's very Baudrillardian, very desert of the real, which is one of the terms that Baudrillard used for what's the experience of the hyperreal, is that there's a desert of the real. It's like you're in the desert searching for water, but what you're actually searching for in this case is authenticity.
So Baudrillard is describing what he sees as postmodernity, and what he thinks is that what is real and authentic is just clinging on as vestiges, right? In the same way that what's left of me and James eating our strawberries in ancient Rome, what's left is just the simulacrum of the flavor of the strawberry in its hyperreal form in the Slurpee, and the image of the simulacrum image of the strawberry where it's more red than red can possibly be in a strawberry, and it's perfectly colored, and it's on the label that labels it as a strawberry Slurpee, right? He thinks that the real is just holding on, it's rotted away. It's like I built a model of New York City and then we abandoned New York and just lived in the model, in the life-size replica of New York City. Or if I built the life-size replica of my own house and I move next door into the life-size replica of my house, and then my old house begins to tremble down and fall away. This is what Baudrillard thinks. Because Baudrillard's a Marxist, right? Or he starts out as a Marxist. He eventually, because he's dealing so much with semiotics and with signs and with symbols and with language, that what he thinks is the move that he makes to go from Marxism to postmodernism is to recognize that he says, look, we have the use value of a thing and we have the exchange value of a thing. And he says, well, we also have the symbolic value of the thing. And then he comes to the point where he says, all of the trades and purchases and decisions are being made on the basis of the symbolic nature of the thing. So all of the foods I don't eat hot dogs and hamburgers and pizza because I'm hungry. I eat them because I'm an American. And that's where he kind of leaves Marxism behind. He drops it and he says, this is no good anymore. And that's when he gets into the most pessimistic, cynical philosopher there probably is, because he thinks it's gone and he thinks we need to have a new theory of politics. And his work becomes more strange, not interesting, and iconoclastic as he gets older, right? And he kind of leaves his doesn't leave his postmodern phase, but he goes kind of through it to a post-truth phase where it's like, what's true is not, it's not that things are false, it's that they're more true than true. It's that they're more real than real. It's
Truthiness.
Yeah, it's beyond truth. It's on the other side of truth, right? So, but he longs for the authentic, real engagement, right? That's what he wants to have, but he can't have it. It's gone. And so he despairs of this, right? Okay, so Foucault and Derrida, on the other hand, they're doing something different. Derrida and Foucault are actually synthesizing and creating the ideas which lead us further and further and further into the postmodern condition, where Baudrillard thinks we're losing everything purely because of science and symbols and technology. Foucault is saying, but it's also power. And then Derrida is saying, and it's also how language works. There's no metaphysical foundations for it. And all of a sudden you add those three things together and it just accelerates everything, right? So by the time Baudrillard writes in 1981, Derrida's already taken off, Foucault has already taken off. These men are stars in their fields, particularly in France where he's writing. And he's looking at all this and saying, like, it's all hopelessly despair. That Baudrillardian analysis has streaking through the center of it. It's all very leftist, very anti-capitalist, but streaking through the center of it is what? It's this conservative goal to return to the past that is better, that is more authentic. There's a better, more authentic past. And that's where they get purchased with the trad pomos. The second way that Baudrillard does is that a Baudrillardian deconstruction can deconstruct a lot of the things they don't like. So, for example, what they could point out is they could say, look, the poet Philip Larkin declared that sexual intercourse was not invented until 1963, right? Because prior to that, we had something else. We have now birth control pills. We have recreational sex coming up in the 60s. But before that, we didn't have that. So sexual intercourse as a casual phenomenon disconnected from family was not invented until 1963, right? That kind of analysis is going to be really useful because they're going to look at the trans moment that's currently occurring and they're going to say, look, back in ancient Rome, and me and James are picking the strawberry, we see women. And they're just women. And then we fast forward to the 1960s, and all of a sudden we have women, but they're wearing makeup. They have makeup and their hair is done. And they're on birth. Wait a second. Hold on. She's having makeup. Her skin is better than skin. It's more real than skin. Her hair is prettier than real hair. Then wait a second. She's on birth control. So now we're having a sexual act, which is not a reproductive act. So is it really a sexual act? And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep pushing that till we go to breast implants and chin implants and more facial feminization. And then we're going to take a woman who's... So finally you come up in the 1900s, right? Of the 1960s with the makeup and the hair and everything else. And then you're going to move forward to the 1980s where you're going to have breast implants. So now you have the makeup and the hair and the breast implants. Then you're going to move into the 90s where you have the makeup, the hair, the breast implants, and the Photoshop. And then you're going to move forward to you have the makeup, the hair, the breast implants, the butt implants. Everything is shaved perfectly. You're going to have a labiaplasty. And then you're also going to, on top of that, have a Photoshop. And then you're going to, on top of that, have a feminization filter via Twitter and Instagram, which is going to give you a nice glow up, which is filmed from every conceivably perfect angle. And they're going to say, look, it's a simulacrum of femininity. And then you're going to have the trans movement. And what are they doing when they're trying to transition from male to female? The target they're aiming for is the Instagrammed version of the simulacrum of femininity. And then around that, they're going to form an identity. So it's a hyper-real identity that's not even based on anything that really exists. They took all the stuff that was added. They took the hyper-real picture of what femininity is, abstracted that out, and then said that's the new thing we're aiming for, which creates itself
and it's more woman than woman. It's more to become a woman is more important than to merely be made as a woman through the womb. That's not a woman.
The typical porn star actress is the strawberry Slurpee of women, right? That's what we have. And now we're going to take the trans thing, which is going to take the strawberry Slurpee of females and the blueberry Slurpee of males, and it's going to mix them together. And that thing is going to form an entirely new. And what they're going to say is, the trads are going to say, look at this. None of this is real. It's all fake. It's all hyper-reality. None of it actually exists. And boy, doesn't that just strike a chord as being like, you know what? A lot of like RuPaul's Drag Race is doing what? When they say, it's James Charles calling everybody sister, right? It's a guy calling everybody sister. It's RuPaul's Drag Race where to be a woman is like this, where the drag queens are doing what? They're taking all the stuff that we associate with femininity, which is really just exaggerated femininity, which is really just hyper-real femininity, and they're applying that to males and abstracting out the maleness of it. So the biology is left completely out. The real is gone. What matters is the image. And so to the trad pomo, that Baudrillardian analysis where they say all the things that they don't like are fake. Pornography is fake. You have fake women who are pretending to have sex with men who are all pretending to enjoy it so that they can pretend that the camera's not there, so that we can watch and pretend to get sexually excited, so that we can pretend to be having sex by ourselves as we watch the computer screen, and then we can all pretend that this is normal so that we can pretend that we're in a relationship via OnlyFans. Right? And the trad promos are going to look at this and say it's all fake. It's all a huge spectacle. And what happens when you adopt that analysis is that reality is running away as vestiges, and it's just knock, knock, knock on the door. It's knocking on the door of a postmodernist anti-realist epistemology.
Which is why I say that the answer to this is not to create another hyperreal with a correct side up pyramid, but rather to break from the entire nonsense and start seeking the authentic in an authentic way.
Yes,
the authenticity is the kryptonite to all of this postmodern nonsense. And if you read these neo-Marxist philosophers where they're talking about alienation, if you the constant alienated state, you can even read Marx about the alienation of the worker. If you read the postmodernists, it's just alienation taken up to like level 99. Limit break alienation, and to the point where we no longer have reality. We just have literally Baudrillard described it as rotting strips and vestiges of reality attached at weird places to the hyperreal. What people are craving, and what that kayfabe of Trump's kind of more performative aspects of his MAGA stuff was tapping into, is they're aching for either authenticity or at least something that eases the cognitive dissonance and steps out of the complexity and at least winks and says, at least if we're going to have to pretend, we're going to know we're pretending and have fun. We're going to know that there is no spoon. But what people really are aching for most is to figure out how to break out of the matrix, if you will, entirely to experience the authentic as the authentic actually is. But the problem is it's very scary. The hyper real, the false authenticity. This is such a huge idea that people can't find the authentic, which is all around them all the time, because they're looking for the hyper authentic, and it's not there. So that there's the old Zen koan, which is if you meet the Buddha upon the road, kill him. And I interpret that to mean, after much contemplation of it myself, I interpret that to mean that if you think you're enlightened, you should probably stop thinking that, because you're certainly not. Or that if you are pursuing enlightenment for itself, then you're doing it wrong. So with this pursuit of the authentic, I used to meditate a lot, and the instructions for meditation are that you're not meditating until you're not trying to meditate. You don't meditate until you stop trying to meditate. So as long as you're trying to meditate, you're not achieving it. And how do you meditate then? Well, you stop doing things. Well, how do you stop doing it? You just stop. So how do you find the authentic? Is you stop searching for it. And it's one of these profoundly simple things Profoundly simple things. Because when you're seeking the authentic, especially in a world of 40 mirrors, all I can think every time Wokal brings up the Hall of Mirrors, though, is Bruce Lee, right? With, he's got all the slashes on him, and he's like, yeah, this whole thing, and he like kills that guy, and it's an awesome movie. And so I'm thinking of that, but the thing is, if you're in that Hall of Mirrors all the time, the way that you figure out where you are is you stop looking at the mirrors. You just pay attention to yourself. You stop doing it. You stop looking for the thing out there. You stop looking for the authentic. The authentic's already there. You're already in the authentic every instant that you're alive. You just have to stop looking for it somewhere else, and you'll realize that. But that's almost impossible to do.
I'm on my way, and nothing is gonna stop me. Nothing's gonna stop me.
Buddy, no. Buddy, no. Buddy, get.